Hello, Paper and Glam readers. Welcome back to Book Club. I'm so excited tonight to kind of ring in the fall with you with my very favorite book, The Great Gatsby. If you ask me, this is, and many, many literary scholars, this is our strongest American novel. It's the best one we have. And not only that, it's just so compelling. I read a review that said reading The Great Gatsby is like eating whipped cream. It's just incredibly short, but it's so complex and nuanced, and there's just so much to unpack with this book. And I hope at the end of our session today, our session sounds like a class, the end of our book chat today, you are just as in love with The Great Gatsby as I am, if you are not already. So today is National Coffee Day, and if you are into seasonal living like I am, and a lot of our group is, we like to celebrate the little holidays. So today's icebreaker, brought to you by Miss Hayden, is going to be, what is your favorite coffee beverage? So mine is definitely bulletproof coffee. I have it every morning. If you want to know what it is and what to make it, how to make it, just Google bulletproof coffee, and there's tons of YouTube videos. You'll be rocking right away. But it is just so good, and like the perfect breakfast and way to start the morning. Tabitha, what is your favorite coffee drink?
So I'm not a big coffee drinker. I probably only have it like twice a year, like in the wintertime. And I usually just go if it has mocha in the title. Just go, yeah, if I have mocha, yeah, I'll get that. That's it. I don't do it every day. It's never been my thing. I love the way it smells. I like the way it tastes, but I've just never been into it, more a tea person.
I'm pretty much the same as Tabitha in that I don't drink coffee a lot. I drink tea more often than I do coffee. If I do get coffee, I usually get a vanilla latte, and depending on the time of year or just my mood, usually I get it iced, but if I'm cold, obviously, I don't do the iced part.
Well, I wouldn't be a true Canadian if I didn't say this was my brand. This is our beloved Tim Hortons. So this is my drug of choice, at least one every day. My husband actually just brought it in, and I thought I'd put it in like a fancy dancy mug, but this is really all that's in there. So Tim Hortons, just regular roast, with sweetener, a hazelnut shot in there, and we're good to go.
Okay, are you guys prepared for this? Because I'm true to form, so high maintenance. It depends. I drink black coffee every day, but then if I'm going to treat myself, it's either a mocha or some sort of frappuccino, or I do love doing kind of like a knockoff bulletproof coffee as well when I'm taking the time in the morning. Black coffee is my go-to so I can survive the day, but yeah, I'm just kind of high maintenance. And of course, my mocha is not, I don't just order a mocha. It's, like a triple non-fat with the whip, one less pump, the most high maintenance possible drink you could have. That's what I drink. So, yeah, that's me.
So I hate coffee, and I hate the smell of coffee, and I don't like it at all. So my fall drink of choice instead, and into winter, is the salted caramel hot chocolates at Starbucks. That's what I always get when my husband goes to get coffee. That's my favorite.
I have black coffee in the morning with a little bit of almond milk creamer. If I'm going to treat myself at Dutch Bros, I get an iced triple shot mocha. If I'm going to Starbucks, I get a latte. And then for tea, I like the hot and spicy tea from World Market. I'll have to think of the name, and I'll post it on Instagram.
Yeah, I have like coffee problems, people, like some serious coffee problems. So I have seasonal coffee drinks. So like right now I'll drink a pumpkin spice latte, 3-pump pumpkin spice latte, not that milk, with whip. Winter comes, I get a peppermint zebra mocha, but only 1 pump of each, because otherwise that's like way too much syrup. I don't know how people can have like 9 to 12 like pumps of syrup. Three is like already way too sweet. I do like a zebra mocha, which is just like mocha, half white mocha. At home we make cafe con leche, on our cafeteria on top of the stovetop, which is a Cuban espresso, and we use Cafe La Llave, which is a brand that is kind of like, that's what we use. So that's what we make. And we have a Keurig too, and I have a Keurig in my classroom. I just have coffee problems, which is really weird because I can go like days and days without drinking coffee. I just really like to drink coffee.
Oh my gosh, now I am definitely feeling some coffee. I'm with you on the double pump lattes. I'm like double pump, vanilla pumpkin, whatever it is, that's a wrap. So our first question, as always, is how many stars would you rate The Great Gatsby, and what was your experience reading it? And book chatters who are on the live chat, I love to read your comments, and so do all the book chatters, so definitely keep the convo going in the comments too with us. I, of course, you guys know this is probably my favorite book, so if you don't, no pressure to rate it accordingly, but I just love this book. It's one of those books that I just can reread over and over, and it's inexhaustible. I read The Companion, which I can't recommend more, and it's So Read On, which was the recommended companion for this month. It's down in the description box of the video if you aren't familiar with Maureen Corrigan. This book and Leave Me Alone, I'm reading her 2 books. I cannot recommend more. But anyway, she said, what makes Gatsby so amazing is that it is inexhaustible. You can read it again and again. And she says it makes you feel like someone took the lid off life and let you look at the works, which is a quote from another novel. But I cannot agree more. I think that's really what makes this book, it's so manageable and inexhaustible at the same time. And it's also just complex beyond complex, but you don't even know it because it's such an enjoyable read. And for me, it's just, when I think about fiction, I'm looking for The Great Gatsby. I've shared before that I really struggle with fiction. It's just not usually my genre, and I can have total fun with it, with like Girl on the Train and all the boys we loved before, and a lot of the fiction we read this year I loved. But when I read fiction, I'm looking for Gatsby. I still want those like profound moments that you have in nonfiction. So I, of course, have to rate it 5 stars. And yeah, thanks for listening to my Gatsby obsession. It just kind of rings my bell. All right, who is next? I think it is Tabitha.
Yes, it's me. So I give it 4 stars. I didn't know anything about the story. That's what I love about this book club, is I usually don't know anything about the books, and I just go in blind. And reading it, I read it, and first I've heard so many people, kind of just saying, oh yeah, great book. And I was just like, oh, it's a classic. So I'm just like, I get excited because I have this idea in my mind that I really want to check off as many classics as I can. So, reading it, I read it, and I said, okay. And I just said, okay, well, it's definitely interesting. It was nice and short. But then I was thinking, that was it. Like for a while, I was just like, I was expecting, I don't know, to be floored or something. So now I'm really excited to get to the point where we discuss the book, because maybe there's so many hidden things or things I just glossed over, just trying to just get the basics as far as like the characters and what happened and what went down and the era. And so right now I'm just excited to, talk about so many of the things that people want to unpack in the book, because I'm just right at a place where I'm just like, okay, yeah, I like it, but I'm kind of like, I'm waiting for the magic kind of to hit me, I guess. But I give it 4.
I'm gonna give it 4.5. I think, like Tabitha said, if you just go in and it's just a casual read, even knowing that it's a classic and knowing that there's like expectations of it being something, the story itself, I think, is pretty underwhelming. It's kind of like, this happens, and like if you try to tell somebody what it's about, you're like, okay, so there's this, like, it's kind of hard to like get people really excited about the storyline itself. So for me, like, the thing that I think makes it so good is how it's written. It's the writing is the thing that like elevates it, and a casual just pick it up off the bookshelf reader isn't going to get that out of it, which is probably in part why it wasn't successful when it was released, because it's kind of, I mean, the story itself is not really something that tell your friends about or whatever. But the way that it's written is beautiful, and it's, I think, something that writers strive for. And a lot of this was in So We Read On, just about how it's like basically a perfectly structured book. And I think that as like readers who come into it like wanting more out of it, like the depths of it are like endless. So there's always something to be looking for in it. And I think that is what makes it so good, is that you can reread it and reread it, and every time you're going to find something new, get something more out of it.
Yeah, I think I'm that average reader that Erica touched on. I know my socks were supposed to be blown off, given the reviews and what most people have said about it. I'm back and forth between 3.5 and 4 stars. Sorry, Lisa Marie. I know maybe I just wasn't paying attention, and I'm sure, like what Erica and Tabitha were saying, I'm sure if we unpack it a little bit more, the light bulbs will go off, and I'll be more like, oh, okay, yeah. I know there's a lot of literary devices, but this kind of book is a little bit like I read it as a story. I wasn't looking for all the extras that I know is in here. Anyway, I think as we unpack it, I'll probably like it a little bit more. It was an easy read, quick book, quite easy to get through. It's a great, for me, it's great if you're traveling. It's a nice little book that you can take with you and be done on your trip, and you're good to go. But it's a little bit out of my wheelhouse, so I think that's why maybe it's kind of like I wanted exactly what the girls before me were saying. It was a little underwhelming.
So, I feel really bad saying this. I like a 3.5. I still don't think I get it. I enjoyed it more this time. I've read Gatsby before, but definitely So We Read On made me enjoy it far more than I did the first time, because I just didn't get it. I maybe don't know how to read things in a way to truly like fall in love with a book like this, but I definitely have picked up more of I love Gatsby more this time, like the character, and my heart breaks for him. So I don't know, 3.5. What about you, Katrina?
So I did not enjoy it either. I would probably give it a 2, and I don't consider myself an average reader, but I feel like I just didn't enjoy it. Like, I read a chapter and then I read the spark notes on the chapter, and then I did that for every single chapter, which I've never had to do with a book ever, and I like to read literature, so that was strange for me. But I don't know, maybe it's because like as part of my job, like I'm in a theater class right now. It read to me as a play, and I just like, I don't know, how it sounded in my head was just throwing me off. And so I just had a difficult time. I'm not super into the time period. I'm not super into like the wealthy. I wasn't into the story. It just kind of felt like, what's the point to me through a lot of it? I understand the devices and the writing style, and I appreciate it, but maybe like Sarah, like maybe it'll get better the more I read it. But I don't see myself picking it up for a few years at this point. I don't know, it just wasn't my jam, and I was really disappointed that it wasn't my favorite, but it just wasn't.
So I gave it 3 stars, and this was my first time reading The Great Gatsby, and it's not that I didn't enjoy it, I agree with Katrina, it read like a play to me. So what I did is I started on the first chapter, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to read this right, so I downloaded the Audible version. And honestly, for me, that made it so much better. Jake Gyllenhaal read it, and he did different voices, and it kind of made it come alive in my mind for me, which made me enjoy it more than I think I would have had I actually read it. So I gave it 3 stars only because I
I did like the story, and I really love Gatsby, and I understand all the literary devices, and I too read the Smart Notes so I could understand a little bit more about what was going on. But I definitely say if you aren't this kind of reader, to listen to the Audible. It was definitely a 5-star Audible in my opinion.
So this is my favorite book, so I'm gonna obviously give it a 5-star. These are only 2 of the maybe, that's backwards, sorry. 2 of the maybe like 5 copies I own. It's yeah, it's a problem. It can go with my coffee problem. They can hang out. I give it 5 stars, and it is because of like the perfect sentences, and because it goes so deep and so wide. And if you just want a pleasure read, yeah, it's not like a pleasure read. It's like my husband hates The Great Gatsby. He hates it, but he definitely thinks it's a book. Kind of like if you read the So We Read On, she says like, oh, it does seem like a book for like people in their like late 20s to early 30s. Like it hits like because of the age of the characters. But I do think that if you've been exposed to it before and you reread it at that time, that's when you kind of get like, oh, I get some of these things I didn't get before, or I see something different. And for me, that's definitely why it's a 5-star read, because it's such a teachable book, and there's so much discussion that can be had, and everything is important. The location is important, so you almost need to have a map of what's going on, and you need to be able to draw the picture, and because it goes so deep. But Fitzgerald was trying to go deep. He didn't want to write a book for the masses. He wanted to write a book for like literary people. So it's a literary book for literary people, and he was really concerned about what literary critics thought, as opposed to what like the general population thought. So I think that, you know, in the long run, he achieved his aim, but even some of those people who he was trying to impress were like meh about the book. Some of them really liked it, some didn't, but he definitely that's who he was writing for. So I understand when like students or other people tell me they hate this book. I completely understand.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said, Jana. And Sophia in the comments made a really, really insightful comment. She said, I think liking this book depends on what kind of reader you are. If you like a slow burn message rather than an action-packed epic story, then this will be your kind of book. And I completely agree. And I kind of moving on from what Katrina said is like I said too, I struggle with fiction, and I want to be that kind of reader that can just get lost in a book, and I just don't know how to do that. But I love these slow burn message books. And the other thing too, and this is kind of a great segue to number 2, what was your favorite quote, character, scene, or literary device? And just the style of the book. It's almost like, you know, when you have your favorite song and you find yourself like repeating just like a couple lyrics over and over because they're just so profound and they resonate so deeply with what maybe is kind of going on in your life. That's how I feel about Gatsby. You know, like the text and just the style is incredible. It's the only book that I find myself wanting to reread like lines and just almost like say them aloud. That's what makes it great. And also to Jana's point, you know, when Fitzgerald wrote this, he was like, I'm going to write a masterpiece that's finally going to kind of show people what I can do beyond just short stories. And so when he wrote this, he basically I don't even know, I don't want to say over structured, but like every last detail, it's nearly perfect from a literary perspective. It is perfect. There's like 2 typos in it and that's it. You know, it's just a book that is incomparable in my humble opinion, and definitely Maureen Corrigan's humble opinion to anything else we have out there. So just the style. If you're someone who really likes to read just beautiful prose, this will be your book. But yeah, if you're looking for a killer story, the story is a conduit for Fitzgerald's message, and we'll get more into this later in, I think it's the 4th question, but the story was developed around the message he wanted to write. He wanted to make a statement about America, and he kind of crafted a story that would allow him to do that. So, yeah. All right. Cindy. Oh, Tabitha. Darn it. Why do I keep doing that, Tabitha? I'm so sorry. What was your favorite quote? I know you got your quote ready.
Yes, I do. So my favorite quote was, it's at the end of chapter 7, and it says, "They weren't happy, and neither of them had touched the chicken or the ale, and yet they weren't unhappy either. There was an unmistakable air of natural intimacy about the picture, and anybody would have said that they were conspiring together." I like that, we're talking about, thinking about the two of them, Daisy and her marriage, and Gatsby on his search, I guess a search of improvement. But when they finally come together, so there's this moment where they're there together. So it's just like they're not happy, but they're happy. Like, I don't know. I just love the way that the way that quote goes. And it just reminds me of like having like when old friends come together, like maybe someone that was in your life for a while and you, for whatever reason, separated. And then when you finally came back, like there's so much changes and so many differences. History that's there. So it's that, it's comfortable, but it's not completely comfortable. Like, how some people might just fall into a groove. I don't know. I thought that was a beautiful picture. I am interested in kind of digging more into some of the characters now, especially having all of you ladies who, who absolutely, I love you, how well read you are. So I think it's interesting because I don't know, I think there is so much more there that we could talk about with all the different people, or why did he use this, or why did he choose that. So that's the fun part for me about book club. I love, like, after someone's read something to say, oh yeah, did you pick up on that? Oh yeah, what did you think about that? I mean, that's the exciting part about reading, because it takes it from just being in your own intimate space into a place where it involves others. But yeah, that was my quote.
Okay, mine is kind of different. I guess it would be considered a literary device, although not technically. My favorite part of it is just the voice. I didn't notice the first I read it, just reading it on my own, like oh, that's a really great sentence right there. Oh, that really is really evocative for what he's going for. But it wasn't until I listened to it on audio, and I listened to it, I was trying to figure out when it was. I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years ago on audio. Robbins, who was reading the version that I listened to, and hearing it read, you notice the cadence of the words, the way that they flow together, the way that the words itself, like obviously the words tell the story, but like the rhythm of the words kind of story. Yeah, and then all the symbolism and all that stuff that we'll talk about later. That stuff, except for when it like is beating you over the head and like telling you like this is what it means. I would prefer for the symbols to be interpreted by each reader, but we can talk about that later. Cindy, go ahead.
I think that this book has some great imagery. Part of my favorites for the book was like I really liked how the imagery around how Gatsby lived across the lake or the pond from Daisy, and it was kind of her house was kind of beaconed by the lights. I get that. That was cool. I also really liked the scene where she comes for tea and it's all like awkward and, it's all kind of weird and stuff. I thought that was really, really cute as well. So there's some really cute scenes in the book where it's definitely relatable, or, it kind of puts you in mind to be in that moment. And I thought that was kind of cool.
I really loved I think so. I left my book at home. I'm not at home, so I don't have it. I highlighted. It was the quote when they're in New York must be like chapter 7 or 8, but they're in New York and they're talking about Daisy's voice, and Gatsby comments that it's a voice of money, and Nick follows up with, she's the golden girl, she's the king's daughter, something along those lines. I just liked how it kind of, for me, it tied in with the quote on the like cover page of the book about wear the golden hat if she wants you to wear the golden hat, jump if she wants you to jump, or whatever. Because obviously for me, that was about Daisy, and then just relating it to her being the golden girl. I liked that. I also, really loved the cottage tea scene, and it just melted me for Gatsby, how pathetic he was, and just so awkward, and it was painful. In that it I felt things this time, whereas last time I was just like, oh my gosh, this book. So I liked those better this time, or noticed things. Katrina?
Before Katrina, can I cut you off? I have the quote, and I think it's so good. Do you mind if I just read it, since Sarah is on the go and she's joining us anyway, which we very much appreciate. Wouldn't be the same without her. So if you have the kind of classic Scribner version of the book, it's on page 120, and I just love this quote. I was actually just typing it in the comments because I'm a nerd, but it said it says she's got an indiscreet voice. It's full of, I hesitated, and Gatsby fills in, her voice is full of money. He said suddenly, that was it. I never understood before. It was full of money. That was the inexhaustible charm that rose and fell in it, the jingle of it, the symbol song of it. High in a white palace, the king's daughter, the golden girl. Oh, I just love it. So beautiful. Okay, Katrina, what was your favorite?
So I also enjoyed the imagery of the book, and I returned it to the library, and I didn't save the part, but isn't there a part when he's at Gatsby's house where there's a woman who's crying, I think, and he accurately describes like the mascara running down her face, I think. I don't remember, but something about that I really liked, as well as like while he was getting like walking around the house and went through the library and saw the owl man or whatever he described him as. So those are my favorite parts, along with the tea time.
So I'm going to talk about my favorite character, which was Gatsby himself. I just fell in love with him. I felt like he, got the short end of the stick when it came to life, but he did the best he could with it anyway. Like, he had this vision of what he wanted to be. And growing up, we're all told what the American dream is, and I felt like he really worked for the American dream. He wasn't like Tom, who came into his money. He, did what he had to do, whether it was legal or not, but he built a life that he wanted, so that way he could have the girl he loved, the life he thought she deserved, whether she did deserve it or not. Because I'm not a big fan of Daisy, mostly because she broke his heart, but that's a whole nother story. But I just thought Gatsby was your classic gentleman, and he just really thought of everything, and he just held her in such a light. Like, I think every girl dreams of being loved, like Gatsby loved Daisy, and that's why I liked him so much.
Oh, I really like that. Like, Gatsby loved Daisy because, he really was in love with her. I think I have a lot of stuff, but I like that at the beginning there's a quote that says, I had that familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer. And then later on, Jordan Baker says, life begins all over again in the fall, or something like that. I don't have that one marked with a separate mark. But I like that there's this thread of wait, is the summer the beginning? Is the fall the beginning? That these themes kind of go throughout, and that everything is so well crafted that it doesn't just show up once, but it's throughout the text. I really like that. And two other quotes that I really just like in general is, it's a great advantage not to drink among hard drinking people. And I just think that's a great quote because, I don't know, growing up I was always the sober person among hard drinking people, so because there needs to be a DD. So I just always have liked that quote because it is, because you always know what's really going on. And there's a sense that Nick always knows what's going on, except for those couple of times when he gets drunk. And he says it's only twice, but if you pay attention, it's more than twice. But he is more often sober than they are. And right near that is another quote that I think Daisy says, and says, there are only, is it Daisy? Maybe it's, no, I think Jordan says it. I think all the quotes I love, Jordan says. There are only the pursued, the pursuing, the busy, and the tired. And I just love like those categories of people because all the characters within the story can fit into the pursued, the pursuing, the busy, and the tired. And so I don't know, I really like that. And Jordan, I love Gatsby, but Jordan's one of my favorite like characters because I feel like she's underrated and she helps move a lot of the action as calm and serene as the action may seem at times along. You know, she's a catalyst for a lot of what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny that we kind of, that fall quote that comes up all the time during this time of year, it's like the Pinterestable quote from this book. I always wonder why, I guess because fall is such a thing these days, but I always wonder why it's the fall one that always comes up and not the summer one. And I put the fall one in our Glam September collection, and I'm totally going to put the summer one into the summer collection because I just love those quotes, and the summer one just does not get enough love. So also, great segue on to our next question, which is with the Great Gatsby, Fitzgerald, he used 10 different symbol systems in the Great Gatsby, and I am normally not a huge fan of really complex symbol systems. We talked a lot about symbols in our discussion of Blonde and the Marilyn Monroe book, if you guys were with us in June. And I typically, like I said, like that usually detracts from a book for me, but the symbols in the Great Gatsby just add a layer of complexity like symbols really should. Instead of kind of, I don't know, like Dickens, for example, I'll throw him under the bus. Like sometimes his books are just so heavy with, you know, like the way the characters are structured and just the prose, and it's like, oh, it's so heavy, it's almost hard to read. And Fitzgerald manages to incorporate 10 major symbol systems, which is more than any book, at least I've ever read, and just still do it so beautifully. And the 10 are temperature, location, season, eyes or vision, color, hours of the day or time, names, birds, vehicles, mythology, and then Gatsby as a Christ figure. So I, of course, love the season symbol system. Just, that for me, I think that might be why this is my favorite book, because it's like seasonal living in a fiction book. And my favorite quote really, or one of them, there's so many, one of them that really just, like everything is marked in a season, and or not every, but many of the major actions in the book are rooted in a season that just is so, you can, in the way that he articulates the season itself and the way that it's changing, he does it and it progresses the book, and it's just so beautiful. So this is on page 110, and it's that famous Gatsby quote where he says, "Can't repeat the past? Why, of course you can." And Nick says, "He talked a lot about the past, and I gathered that he wanted to recover something, some idea of himself perhaps, that had gone into loving Daisy. His life had been confused and disordered since then, but if he could only return to a certain starting place and go over it all slowly, he could find out what that thing was. ... One autumn night, 5 years before, they had been walking down the street when the leaves were falling. Now it was a cool night with that mysterious excitement in it which comes at the two changes of the year." Oh, I just love that. It just reminds me so much of fall and maybe like the start of, the spring and the start of the new year. It's always like, oh, maybe if I just like back up a little, go back to basics, I'll kind of fall into a better rhythm, and kind of that hope that comes with the season changing. So yeah, I absolutely just love the way he weaves it. There's just, in almost every opening scene change, he weaves in a season. He just talks about July, he talks about the temperature, he talks about just where they are in the year. And I just, it's just so well done. All right, I need to stop rambling. Tabitha, what did you think about symbols?
Okay, so I picked up on nothing. I didn't pick up on
That's
anything.
okay. I'm sorry. I fired these questions out like maybe 4 hours ago. So I know I didn't.
But I'm really happy that, that you're mentioning it, because I'm like, oh, wow, okay, I didn't pick up on any of that. Let me go back and look at that, because that's a lot. 10 sounds interesting, but no, when I read it, I didn't pick up on the symbols. Yeah, it totally went over my head.
That's okay.
I think my favorite, I don't know, there's a lot of them that I think color is always one of my favorite ways of inserting like a subtle thing into a scene that it doesn't hit you over the head. Like, it's not like, obviously, like the blinking light is one that like she talks about. And so we read on the blinking light and the eyes are like the ones that literature professors gravitate toward, or I guess the readers in the classes talk about those as like the symbols, because they're the really obvious ones. But like the subtle ones, like the colors, the season, the time, all that stuff. I feel like that's, to have so many symbols but have it be subtle the way that it is really difficult to do. And the fact that he can have so many symbols in such a short book and like not have it feel like all it is like a story full of symbols. Yeah, I mean, like I said, the writing is just amazing as somebody who writes and tries to do that. So it's really difficult to do. And he does it so well that you can read it and not notice it, which is a good thing.
I'm just going through the list of the symbols, and like Tabitha, in retrospect, you kind of think to yourself, okay, yeah, I get the temperature. Like, I remember the hot, and everybody's hot and everybody's sweaty, the location, the seasons, just like Lisa Marie was saying. I didn't get the eyes, and I didn't get the mythology, unless they're referring to the statues of where Gatsby lived. And I definitely didn't get Gatsby as a Christ figure. So I'd be interested to hear if, how that kind of played out in other people's perspectives. But yeah, and again, going back to the imagery, I think for me, that's basically where a lot of it came to light and came to, my mind's eye of how I saw it. So yeah, definitely looking back at the list, yeah, quite a few. But as I said, I'd love to hear someone's perspective if they got the imagery of the Christ-like figure.
Okay, so I probably fall in the category of a below average reader because I did not pick up on anything except for, because I read So We Read On first, like in between my first reading of Gatsby, and then I just, like started it and then reread Gatsby. So I picked up on, because Maureen Corrigan mentions the water, like a water theme, and kind of the foreshadowing around the, the final scene in the pool. And so I picked up on that this time. And then she talked a lot about that the book was, one of the working titles for the book was Trimalchio. And so I meant to Google that and see if I picked up on that part of the mythology, but I did not get to that. But I did notice that reference. I mean, they made a reference. Nick drew a comparison, I think, between Gatsby and Trimalchio, but I don't know the reference. I meant to Google it. So, I mean, I noticed it and I was like, oh yeah, that was one of the titles that Fitzgerald wanted for the book. But then it still went over my head because I'm not a sophisticated reader. I missed all of that except for what was put in my path by Maureen Corrigan. How about you, Katrina?
I couldn't get my button. Okay, so I caught the eyes, but that was about it. And I think that was because I wasn't reading it with a highlighter. I wasn't reading it looking. I was just reading it, and so I caught the obvious one of the eyes and the billboard and that kind of stuff, but I didn't even read into it as much as like reading on SparkNotes about the, what does it say? Let me go to my other tab about capitalism and loss of spiritual values. Like that totally, like, I just caught it as like, we're watching you and what you're doing. So I got it, but I didn't get it, and that was about it. So if I did read it again, I probably would read it at a much slower pace with the highlighter in a paper copy, not on my iPad from the library, in order to get it. But I do like that there were that many symbols that weren't like hit me over the head, though, that you can read it both with that thought in your mind and without it. So that was, I appreciate that part.
So I only got 4 of them. I picked up on the temperature because that had a lot to do with the story and what was going on, and the season changes, the locations, and the hours of the day, and that was pretty much it. Now that I think about Gatsby as a Christ figure, I get it, because when people described him, they described him as doing these outrageous things and no one could figure him out. And when they first started talking about Jesus, no one actually knew what he was or what he was about and what he was doing. So I get that part now that I think about it, but I wouldn't have picked up on that had Lisa Marie not actually wrote that out.
Yeah, and then, you know, the other part of the Christ-like figure is because of he is killed not for his sins, not that he's not pure or anything, but he's killed for the sins of Daisy, and Tom, but, you know, a bit of Daisy, and he's the one who bears the brunt of that. And so, you know, I don't know, there's so many symbols and they're all there. The colors always are good, right? There's all the yellow and the green and the red. And I always like the symbols that are part of the setting. When they're in Myrtle's apartment in New York, and the colors and the symbols really pop in the way they describe the different aspects. The colors that are described when they're in the Valley of Ashes, and the symbols really just kind of, you know, just the way that area makes them feel, and how it's just really gray and bleak. And if you read the descriptions of Tom and Daisy's house versus Gatsby's house, so when they compare the symbolism of the colors on East Egg versus West Egg, there's just a lot of richness there too. And it really, you can really visualize their states that way. Tabitha's giggling at me.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. She's like, I'm not muted on that. It's okay. So yeah, I don't know. I like that. I like that how the locations and the colors like mix together as symbols, as opposed to just, you know, being like separate entities.
Sorry. Oh my goodness, I love it. And one thing we didn't talk about that I just want to mention really quickly, because I even have it on my sweatshirt, but the cover of the book, which Maureen Corrigan calls it arresting, and I just think that's, oh, she just has such a gift with words herself. Anyway, this arresting cover was, so Fitzgerald saw it as a potential cover for his book, and he loved it so much, he actually wrote it into the book, which I just think is, I mean, who does that, right? Like, there's just so many unique things about Gatsby that just make it really special. And I can't believe I missed the water symbol, and I read And So We Read On, so wow. That's why it's just inexhaustible, you know? All right, so the next question is, and this, we talked about this a little bit earlier, about how Fitzgerald, he wrote Winter Dreams, and he wrote Swimmers, and he wrote, there's another short story that were kind of, I think they're called the Trimalchio Papers, and they're kind of like his predecessors to writing The Great Gatsby, and he very clearly set out to say something about America and about its promise, and whether its promise still held true or whether its promise was kind of going to collapse. And we know, because of the collapse of 1929 that happened right after this book came out, you know, it did collapse in some cases, and then it just kind of keeps going. And there's also a lot of really weird, like premonition type things in this book that Maureen Corrigan talks about too. And this is like a total tangent, you guys. I'm just like on one tonight. Bear with me. So there's a few sentences with swastika and talking about Jews and stuff. And obviously World War II hadn't happened yet. And there's just like a lot of weird little things in this book that just, it's like, wait, what? When you think about the timing of it, it just makes a lot of sense. Especially now, you know, it's like, you know, we have our big election coming up, and it almost feels like our society is on the edge of collapse in a similar way that it maybe did for Fitzgerald when he wrote this in the 20s, where that like Gilded Age excess just couldn't continue. So all that to say, the question is, with The Great Gatsby, Fitzgerald set out to make a statement about America and its innate promise and Americans' extraordinary gift for hope. So Gatsby is basically a metaphor, or is it a simile? I think it's a metaphor for, you know, Americans as a people. And I guess the question finally is, what sort of commentary did you take away from The Great Gatsby as far as, you know, the American dream and kind of that hope and promise that Fitzgerald just did such a beautiful job putting into words? Okay, Tabitha, I know that I just keep throwing the ball to you. It's okay if you want to take a pass.
No, I'm good. I really think about some of the aspects of wealth. You know, you talked about the American dream, but especially the character Tom. About, you know, there was definitely some statements that he made about you know, his various viewpoints. But I think that, you know, we could think about maybe a time in America where that would be the viewpoint. We're like, hey, let's keep the same wealthy people wealthy. Let's keep it for ourselves. We don't want anybody else in. We don't want, you know, and if anyone else is in, we want to question how they got here, and we want to make them, they should stay in their own social circles. So it's definitely something that's relevant for now. We can definitely talk about. He definitely mentioned some things about race, some viewpoints there. There definitely the viewpoint of women, and his idea of women and his relationship with women and his abuse of women. So I don't know. I definitely think it's relevant. So many interesting things. Even talking about people who might want to seek out wealth because they think that, hey, that's the way to go. That's what I want. I want this this particular lifestyle. But then when you look at the people who might actually be in that lifestyle, they're not actually happy. So, and then if you actually obtain it, then are you happy? Because then you end up having no one attend your funeral but your father, so, and your neighbor. So it's definitely, yeah, I love all the different things that you can have a conversation about in reference to this book, and the fact that you can do it right now. That's what I love about a book that's so well written, is that, hey, you can pick it up, and no matter what time frame you're in, to say, hey, how relevant is this, and how can we discuss it?
I think the thing that I really got from like having Gatsby as a metaphor for America was he was striving for this American dream, thinking, oh, this is, once I get there, everything's going to be perfect. It's going to be exactly how I want it to be, and I will have achieved everything that I want. But you see, as you look at Tom and Daisy and their relationship and some of the other characters in the book, that they have the American dream, and it's not perfect. It's not really be striving for if they knew what it was really like. And I think it was just Fitzgerald basically achieved the American dream. He talking about Lisa Marie was talking about foreshadowing. His funeral was basically like Gatsby's funeral. He wasn't able to be buried where his family wanted him buried, and it wasn't really something that, like, he wasn't like this celebrity funeral that everybody was coming out for it to pay their respects. It was just, it's kind of dark, kind of pessimistic. especially coming from someone who has achieved that American dream, and who wasn't maybe as perfect as he wanted it to be.
I agree with what you're saying, Erica. I think that if we look at it from a surface level, you can look at it from the perspective of the American dream, of having the optimism and the innocence and the courage to dream and to go after what you want and get it. But you can also look at it from the other perspective. He had the wealth and everything that he had aspired to, like as far as money and tangible wealth, but he still wasn't happy, and he was still not able to get what he thought would eventually make him truly happy, which was Daisy. So I can see it from both perspectives, both living the American dream and attaining it and, winning, or also the other, kind of always being in the rat race and never really being 100% fulfilled, if that makes any sense.
I mean, I guess is it a metaphor, or is it like satire or a cautionary tale of the American dream? Because I mean, that's I don't know. I mean, I guess I just felt like it is his representation of the American dream. Gatsby took himself from nothing and made himself a millionaire, or whatever the equivalent would be. But it was for naught, like everybody is saying. So I guess I thought it was more, took it more as like a cautionary tale against that, or like a satire of, wealth and, striving to achieve that and then realizing, how worthless it is. But I don't know. That was just kind of maybe my takeaway.
I kind of agree with Sarah with the worthless part satire of it, because I don't know, the American dream kind of bothers me just as it is, as a concept, and what it means to a majority of people versus what it means to people that actually immigrate here for it. I don't know, it's something about just challenges me in a way that I don't like. I don't love the focus on wealth. I don't like any of that. I don't like any real books that are so focused on high society. I'd like to think the American dream is still a place where people can come here as a refugee and survive and give their kids an education and a safe place to live. And I think on that aspect of it, I enjoy it, but I do see this as more of a satire on the stereotypical American dream more than anything.
I definitely align myself with Sarah and Katrina. And to me, the American dream is different for each person. My American dream is not going to be the same as Katrina or Lisa Marie or Tabitha or Sarah or any of the girls on here, because each one of us has a different outlook on what our life would like to be like. So I think the American dream is attainable for each individual person if it's about the real things in life, how many people you have helped in your life, how many animals you've taken care of, how you've spread your joy and your light through the world and made it a better place. Because to me, that's the American dream, is helping the person next to me make this world a better place and making it shine brighter so that we can all have somewhere great to live.
Sorry, I was typing to Hayden. Yeah, I kind of think it's cautionary, especially because it's considered like prophetic, like Lisa Marie said. I do think Fitzgerald definitely felt like that this crazy lifestyle, much like the lifestyle that people try to lead, that's outside their means, was going to implode. And that, not that the American dream itself is bad, but that it can be dangerous, and that achieving it in and of itself is not the fulfillment, because even if you become that wealthy, as the first person doing it in that first generation, you're not going to be the accepted person. You're never really going to fit in all the way. And it's a lot because of how he felt. He grew up, from a wealthy family of name, but no financial background to keep with that name. And all of his friends were really wealthy. And so he kind of always felt a little bit of an outsider. So he's always trying to keep up with them, but it was hard. And it's pretty much what drove him crazy, I think. And he had the wife who was the wife he wanted, but she wasn't the wife he wanted her to be. Once they were married, she didn't fit exactly how he wanted her to be because she was her own person. And so I think, it's kind of just cautionary of be careful what you dream for, because it doesn't turn out exactly how you want it to be. And it can, I think, implode or disintegrate underneath you.
Yeah, so the next question is kind of a bit of it's similar to this one, but I thought it would be remiss not to talk about the last line of the book, because for me, it's like the last line of the book where, the soapy beat on, boats against the current ceaselessly, and on and on. It's like the Gatsby's like a roller coaster where the prose just keeps getting better and better and better and better and better, and those final pages are coming, and they're just incredible. I almost need to reread them every night just to remind myself to like take a chill pill, being the workaholic that I am and just like the type awesome I am. And it's like, we just keep beating on against the current. And that's just life. And it's just so beautiful. So I do want to take a minute to talk about it. I think it's really similar to the last question though. So if book chatters, you kind of want to take a pass or whatever, please, by all means. But I do want to kind of talk about how you guys felt reading those last few pages. Oh, Tabitha.
Thanks. Yeah, I just went and read it again. But yeah, it pretty much similar to what you were saying, Lisa Marie. Like, what are we doing? Are we, it's with this thing about the life that it doesn't end. Like, are we just constantly going on and on? I never actually thought about the very last sentence of the book, but I like the fact that, kind of like leaves you kind of thinking. I don't know. I think it's creative. I think it's clever. I'm excited to go back after this actually and go back and look at all of the different things about this book. Because I don't know, I like that there was so much in there aside from just a story, because, I love stories. And so usually that's the one thing that I'm looking for when I'm reading, like a story that, captivates me or that I can tell other people about. And initially when I read this, I wasn't picking up on any of that. But now, like, that everyone has been sharing so much about what they're taking away from the book, I'm excited to go back. So yeah, I like that he left the book that way as far as the ending. So I don't know, I feel like I'm changing my stars. I did 4, but it definitely has already increased just from the conversation.
I really like the way that the book ends, but things where I feel like I can't really, I don't know, I can't put into words like the feeling that it leaves me with. I was going to try to come up with something, but I really can't. So I'm just going to pass it to Cindy. She has anything to say on it.
I was just thinking about what we were talking about before about it being a cautionary tale. And if I look at it from that perspective, ending it with that sentence, the boats, take so many hits, the currents, and in life, but we must carry on. So I think that's a great perspective I think that's a great takeaway, to look at it as that cautionary tale. And from that perspective, I think the closing line was fantastic.
So you guys make me feel a little more positively about the closing line, but it's just, for me, it's just so heavy and so we beat on, it just is kind of like drudgery to me. Like, we're going to continue taking hits but onward we plow. I don't know. So yeah, it was heavy, and I guess I don't know, the book left me with a heavy heart for Gatsby. And I guess, which I would not have picked up on had more in accordance, but like the love that Nick had and the admiration that he in retrospect had for Gatsby maybe makes it a little more hopeful, but in general it's just kind of like, oh, so heavy, kind of not. But I mean, you guys are definitely giving me a different, more hopeful, less Debbie Downer view of it, but in general I kind of, it's like a beautiful, but not, it's not happy for me.
The last line makes sense from how the book all came together, because when you go, as I've learned in therapy, when you go against the current, you don't allow yourself to feel and be in that moment, which makes it rocky and unbearable to go through. So if you stay with the current and try to feel your way and not shy away from your feelings, it makes it easier. So I guess from that perspective, it fits with the book. I don't know. Maybe that didn't make sense.
I'm with Sarah. I've always thought it was really heavy, and it makes me think about my husband, like on nights when we have to, like, we get home from work and we cook dinner and we do homework and we have to run the kids taekwondo, and then he's like, oh my gosh, we just have to wake up at 3 a.m. and do it all over again and do it all over again and do it all over again. And yeah, that's, I don't know. I don't really see that as like you're just like fighting against the water and you're tired and you just keep doing it.
I completely agree, Jana. It just like sometimes reminds me to like not wear myself out, because you know what? Tomorrow's another day and we're gonna do it all again anyway, you know? So the next question is the one where you guys get to add to your reading list, and it is, if you love The Great Gatsby, then you will love fill in the blank. So we have talked a lot in the comments, and I think we've talked even today about Z. A lot of us read Z as kind of another companion along with And So We Read On. This is a fictionalized account of Zelda's life, but really goes into Scott Fitzgerald's life, and it's extremely accurate, really, really accurate. I mean, it's painstakingly researched. I'm sure there's things that, you know, of course are fiction, but from what I've read about Fitzgerald's life, I couldn't find a place where it stepped out of bounds. And of course, things are imagined, right? Like, we don't know what happened in certain conversations and all of that, but from a biographical perspective, it was really close, and also just a really compelling read. And then if you read And So We Read On, I cannot recommend reading Corrigan's first book, which is Leave Me Alone, I'm Reading. And I actually just linked both down below in the description box, and I'm waiting for the other titles. And then lastly, so I picked up this book called The Book Club Bible. Sorry, the glare is really bad. It's like pitch black on here. I don't have lights in this room, so I'm using kind of faux lights. But this Book Club Bible book, it goes through kind of all the books that are like quintessential book club books. And it recommends a book by Edith Wharton, and I accidentally just took my, darn it, I just took my, there it is, my bookmark out. But it includes not only like discussion questions, but it also includes good companions. So one of the suggested companions are Tender is the Night, which is one of Scott Fitzgerald's works, Vile Bodies by Evelyn Waugh, which is another about like the 20s in this time period. But a contemporary and someone that Fitzgerald knew and really admired is Edith Wharton's, and Edith Wharton and this book recommends Twilight Sleep, which explores the glittering New York scene of the 1920s and its effect on key players. So those are my recommendations. Tabitha, do you have anything that you think would be a great fit for Gatsby?
I'm not 100% sure about the fit, but I just want to recommend The Lesson Before Dying. You guys can see that. It's probably crazy. Classic. And there was a book that I read that I wouldn't, typically pick up, but I feel like it was beautifully written and interesting. Definitely an interesting story, something that you guys can talk about. So it's just right in that whole zone of the classic. But that would be my recommendation. Ernest Gaines is the author. That's all I have.
I think Erica and I took a pass on this, so you're up, Sarah.
I couldn't unmute myself, and then thanks, because I don't have the benefit of chat. Okay, I'm gonna cheat because I totally don't have a recommendation and I couldn't bow out. But my recommendation is, if you didn't like Gatsby, read So We Read On, because it definitely made me enjoy the book way more the second time. And it was interesting. I enjoyed reading her passion about, or listening, just kidding, because I listened, and even then hearing Maureen's voice while she was talking about Gatsby and how reverent she was, I enjoyed. So I'm kind of cheating because I totally have nothing.
Okay, are y'all ready for this? Because I'm kind of going there. So I went with the romance perspective, and I vote for The Notebook by Nicholas Sparks, because it's basically the same story, except they don't something happens at the end that isn't the same, and I almost spoiled it, but
that was pretty hilarious. If you like the rich aspect of it, I think you might like The Importance of Being Earnest, which is one of my favorite plays, and it's super funny. And of course, now my phone rings. And then this is the same time period, The Diviners, but it has magic in it. And I haven't actually read it yet, but I hear it's pretty good. So if you like the time period, this one. And then this is the same time period, but actually written in the same time period. Sorry, my phone's ringing and my husband's not answering it, obviously. And these are actually two different books by Nella Larson, and one's called Quicksand and one's called Passing. And Passing is it's about passing color in Chicago in the 20s. And so I don't know, it's one of my favorite stories, and I feel like it's just not something that people think about, and it's actually written in that time period. And so I think it's just a really great way to get a different perspective of the world at that time too.
Thank you, Jana. I was just busily linking all those books in the description, so they're there for you guys if you want to check out any of those recommended titles. And I just realized I didn't grab our October read, and we, of course, are doing another seasonal read. I try to make all the reads seasonal, but it's kind of hard. And so we're doing a fun Halloween read. We're all going to wear witch hats. So if you would like to wear a witch hat at home and post it on Instagram, we would love to see your witch hat next month. We are reading A Discovery of Witches. It is the first volume in the All Souls trilogy. So it is a trilogy. It's just supposed to be really fun. I haven't read it, but I know Sarah and Hayden and maybe Katrina have all read it and just loved it. So we're just going to do a fun fiction Halloween read next month. So definitely make sure to mark your planner for the last Thursday of the month and join us. Yeah, I think that is a wrap for tonight. Of course, thank you guys so much just for being about books and being about becoming more well-read, and just kind of all the things Paper and Glam is about. I really appreciate you guys spending your Thursday night talking about books with us and just unpacking them together, because like Tabitha said earlier, that is so much of the fun of reading, and just continuing to kind of grow our reading horizons, if you will. So thank you for all that you guys do to just grow our little band of readers and just the Paper and Glam community. I really do appreciate each of you, and I can't wait for next month. So I will see you guys in October, and hopefully before that. All right, good night.